How's it going, everybody? Jerome here, back bringing you guys another video in regards to Persona 5. And this video is going to be talking about Persona 5 The Royal and how inevitably this may just be the richer version of Persona 5. And I have a lot of reasonings to say that a richer version of a Persona game nowadays is kind of inevitable. I wanted to make this video in discussion to why it's inevitable and how and basically history is going to repeat itself with the Persona series and how this is going to be the route that the Persona series will eventually take. So, first and foremost, let's talk about Persona 3. Now, as you guys know, I technically differentiate how the Persona series as we know now kind of started. And I always say it started with Persona 3. Yes, you had P1, and obviously, yes, you had P2, which is great, by the way. You should definitely try it. But the Persona that we know now is thanks to Persona 3. Persona 3, if you guys aren't aware, actually had two different versions. Well, technically three when it comes to PSP one, but let's just leave that out for now. It had two versions. It had the normal version, which came out in 2006, and it basically didn't have the answer. You actually didn't have the option to even have a social link with Aegis during the original game for Persona 3, believe it or not. Jump 2 more years into the future, and then the West inevitably gets Persona 3 FES, which included a numerous amount of things, but the biggest ones could actually have a social link with Aegis, which you actually didn't have the option before. And the second one is you get an entirely new story segment. The story segment called The Answer, and it goes into the sands of time and stuff like that, and then you yourself get to control Aegis, and you technically get to see the past of how Mitsuru was technically the first one into Tartarus. You get to see how Mitsuru kind of hired Akihiko and so on and so forth. But the biggest one, obviously, in The Answer is to see what happened to Makoto at that time when he fought against Nyx. So that is History Lesson Part 1. Persona 3 FES is an updated version of the original Persona 3. And I guess we could talk about P3P, but probably not for this little video. And now we jump ahead in time into 2008, where Persona 4 initially released. And like I said before, this is the one game that a lot of fans technically started on. And Persona 4 doing hella good. It freaking had spin-offs, it had an animation, obviously it had a manga. It did well. Persona 4, again, as I said in my last video, was a genuinely good game. Now here's the biggest gap right now. Persona 4 Golden came out, but 4 years later, technically. And it was used as a marketing tool to sell PS Vitas. And if you guys remember, Persona 4 Golden was one of the launch titles for the PS Vita. So Persona 4 Golden technically only existed to be a marketing tool for the PlayStation Vita. And as I said before, it included a numerous amount of things as well. New animations, new ending, new events. Persona 4 Golden is an updated version of P4. Some hate it, some like it. It's up to you. Now jump into the year that is technically 2016 to 2017, and that is when we get Persona 5. Obviously, we would have gotten it sooner, but that thing got delayed to hell and back. We would have gotten that thing back in 2013. Remember? All those teaser trailers, but nope. In the end, though, it came out in 2017 in the West, 2016 in Japan. And it already has some spin-off games, which is PQ2, alongside with Persona 5 Dancing in Starlight, or Dancing in Starlight, whatever it's called. But yeah, you get it. It actually has spin-offs. But as of now, as of this video, there actually hasn't been an updated version of Persona 5. And believe it or not, this is the topic I wanted to say during my recent video of Persona 5, but it felt like it was going to be straying too far into another direction than what the initial visual for the video was. So here I am making another video about it all, and in technicality, the marketing strategy for Persona overall. As you guys can tell from history, there is always an updated version of Persona. Let alone, like, even Persona 2 had it as well. You have Persona 2, And then guess what? Persona 2 Innocent Sin. It was a re-release, and it was initially on the PSP. Persona 3, then you got Persona 3 FES, Persona 4, then you got Persona 4 Golden, and now we have Persona 5, and there's nothing yet. And P5 The Royal may just be the updated version of the game that is inevitably going to be happening. Now the question is this a bad marketing stunt for Atlus, or will people just not care? In my honest opinion, people just won't care. As history just portrays, people will still buy these things no matter what. Now, thanks to the power of the internet, more or less, I question, what's the point of buying a new Persona game, let's just say Persona 6 as of now, when I know that 2 to 3 years later down the line, a version of Persona 6 is actually going to be much more richer than its initial launch title. Obviously, having this knowledge, as I said, it won't freaking ruin any sales, especially since a lot of people came from Persona 5, and Persona 5 was their very first Persona game, and thanks to its visual standards, alongside with its well-written side characters, people who just played P5 alone and not the other titles are going to be on board to try out the other new titles that are going to be coming. And yes, there are other titles for you guys who are going to question, like, how do you know there's more titles? They claim domain names. With all that said, though, I don't think a lot of people will be pissed that a new version of P5 is going to be coming out. Because you know why? People genuinely love P5, and it had a lot of positive feedback. But why am I saying this? Well, let me just do a quick comparison for this video, and it's something I brought up in my last video as well. Final Fantasy 15, its vanilla state, people were, you know, they were okay with it. What really made people mad as hell was the fact that its ending sucked. Not the ending where, you know, Noctis inevitably gives his life to save the world, but the ending chapters to build up for that ending. It was genuinely whack. Like, your team splits up, everything is just rushed. You don't have any compelling moments with your characters at all, besides like some really fancy fight scenes. But in the end, those last chapters in the vanilla state of FF15 was pretty damn bad, and a lot of people were genuinely mad that it was like that, especially since it came after the Leviathan fight, you know, its pinnacle of the game, where you literally fight a summon, and it was so sick. And as I said, within those final chapters, nothing crazy happened. Noctis gets absorbed into the crystal, the charged damn ring pop out of the crystal, and then you meet up with your friends, and then you just have not a literal straight path, but in technicality it is. You have a straight path from the damn gates of your home to the damn palace. And all you gotta do is fight monsters and stuff like that. That's all you had to do. Now, before the Royal Edition even came out, they even said that they are gonna be having an update to how to change the ending chapters of Final Fantasy 15 to make it more compelling, to make it more likable and stuff like that. I'm telling you, those last chapters, it may be hard to believe, and that whole entire last segment of the freaking game made a lot of people's rating of the game drop significantly. It was just that bad. So when we heard that they were willing to change the ending chapters with story elements, thanks to the director at the time, and I think it was Tabata, people were like, I don't know how you can't even make this better, but whatever, let's just see what happens. Royal Edition then releases, obviously including the DLC of Ignis, Gladio, and Prompto, and guess what? Just the release of that title, people were mad. People were making videos saying, oh, I was ripped off by Final Fantasy 15 and stuff like that. But in the end, the story elements that they said that they were going to add on to make the game more compelling worked. Story elements added into FF15 Royal Edition was genuinely different from what we got in its original state. And people who gave it a shot again were happy that it changed, but some were left pissed off because they paid essentially like $120 for 2 games that were the same, just with a different ending and the DLC included. That's the comparison I'm trying to make right now. With how well Persona 5 did in both the West and in the East, obviously, and people literally loving the hell out of it, especially the ones that just started with Persona 5 alone, the negative feedback of having a new Persona 5 game is not going to be as bad as how FF15 was, because as I said, FF15, its ending chapters were genuinely bad. It was pretty damn bland. And it was so straightforward that you just, at the end of the day, just wanted it to be over. While in Persona 5, although I did say I had my gripes with it, some people were, again, in love with it. They enjoyed the living hell out of it. So knowing that another edition of the game is coming out with new stuff, people are going to be like, okay, I'm down with that. But then you have people like me that aren't as big as a fan of Persona 5 that sees this pattern, and then I just question myself, if this is really the route, then I might as well just really wait for the inevitable richer version of the game to be released. I guess at the end of the day, it just depends on the consumer whether to be displeased or pleased that a game that they truly love is going to have a much more richer version 2 to 3 years after its initial release. Anyways, I just wanted to make this video, especially for those people that are technically saying that it may be impossible for a newer version to come out for Persona 5 since it only is like a couple years old. But due to, again, past events with Persona 3, which is technically where it all started, an updated version of the game for Persona title is inevitable. And I just wanted to say how, in technicality, a richer version of Persona 5 will actually be more acceptable than how FF15 was treated, especially with its Royal Edition. But anyways, I'll be back with more Persona related content, Persona news, as soon as they drop. Tell me what you guys think down below. I am very curious what you guys think in all this. My name is Jerome, and I will see you guys within the next video.